Western Grove, and obviously I would come down here to come. So I know walking past the station over many years. And you know that just 2 years ago, I lost a wonderful friend in Brentford. And so there's pain when you come back, and you come and you see that, and you think about that tragedy. Again, it's the story of immigrants. It has a relationship with the African continent, and it's almost as if God is bringing me to this part of town, and these stories are commanding for action. So I'm in so many ways grateful to support the Abdul Majid Educational Trust. I will do what I can to help and assist, to see if there are further answers that can come out. Sometimes, things emerge many years later, pieces and fragments are put together. That's what I've learned over the years that I've been doing this job. But in terms of the healing and moving on with one's life and embracing life, finding purposeful ways to go about your life is key, and that I think has been established with the trust. And so I'm very keen to support you in whatever way. There is a broader political issue that's on the table in a meeting such as this, in a country such as ours, and that is, are we really all equal? In great democracies they say we're born equal. I'm not so sure, in truth, that every life is treated as important as another. And I know that for families such as yours, friends, and you know, those of us who can be quickly othered, told that we're slightly different, navigating the justice system, feeling that you were being honoured and treated properly by institutions like police, coroners, judges. This is still a work in process. How British are we, really? What is our claim and our stake here to have the answers and to seek justice? So I know too that this relates to a wider issue, and it's an issue about black deaths, Muslim deaths, African deaths, those that die in either unfortunate ways, and how we feel treated. We know that Abdul lost his life when he had years ahead of him, years ahead of him. And so we also, I think, in these moments, feel in solidarity with those other families in different parts of Kenya as they seek justice. Whether it's the families of Brentford Tower, or it's the families of the Windrush generation. Justice we hold dear in our hearts. So, I end where I began. I'm very, very proud to be of African descent. And when I walk into a room like this, and I'm embraced by the women that I've been embraced by, it lifts me up. It lifts me up. And it warms my heart that good can come. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for those words. Inspirational. And what I took from that is the support that you've got and you trust. I'm for those support. And also reminding us how we're part of a long continuum. There's a story here of how there's resilience after tragedy. And we're so pleased to have any of this caliber supporting this trust. So thank you very much. I think David took himself to by talking about the aspect of the cradle of the human family. So, a sister, how would I put it? I'm already introduced. So there's somebody who's going to tell us about this puzzle of the justice system that was historian, but she went to her expertise and supported the family. So, Harriet, we'll take questions afterwards.
Thank you very much. It's very honoured to be here, and I really salute you for what you've done. I've worked over the years with many families who sadly lost loved ones in terrible circumstances. Often unexplained deaths, sometimes at the hands of the state themselves. I really do salute this family who have chosen to take something positive out of the tragedy that they have to live with every day. Setting up this wonderful trust in memory of Abdul Majid. It's a way of moving forward and taking something positive out of loss. And so I think it's a wonderful thing you're doing. And I understand the need to keep pushing for answers. And who can we look to as an inspiration more than Doreen Lawrence and Neville Lawrence and the family of Stephen Lawrence, who suffered for so many years without justice and continue to suffer without complete justice. But if we look at the example of that case, we can see that there are similarities in some ways here. There was an attitude of the police which impeded an effective investigation at the start, and that led ultimately to a failure to capture prime suspects. And that failure, the family pushed and pushed and pushed over many, many years. They pushed through demanding action from the police. They pushed through political avenues. They secured an inquest and a legal team who pushed for answers. And they carried on fighting for answers. And eventually, many years later, I think maybe 15, 20 years later, they managed to get a police team on the case. I don't know if anyone saw a very powerful documentary which tells the story of the Stephen Lawrence case. But a police officer who actually really, really cared and pushed, and together with that team looked through evidence and eventually found something that did lead to the conviction of 2 of the 5 prime suspects through meticulous police work. And as David has said, everybody, every citizen, no matter what their background, no matter what their personal circumstances, deserves equal treatment and justice. And I'll give you a little bit of an overview of the legal framework. We won't go into a lot of detail, but we have since 1998 had something called the Human Rights Act. And the Human Rights Act contains a series of provisions, including the right to life. Article 2, everyone has a right to life, and the state has a duty not only to prevent unlawful deaths, but also to investigate those unlawful deaths. And over the years, lawyers who've worked in this area with families like that of Abdul Majid have pushed the law to help us get more effective investigations. Along with Article 2 comes something called Article 14, which is about the guarantee of a right to life should be applied equally without discrimination or favour. So that means not just the family of a kind of upright British citizen white, well-off family deserve justice, but everybody, no matter where they come from, who they are, what personal circumstances they've been in, they deserve equal treatment before the law. And that's a principle that we should always remember in cases like this. Just without going into too much detail, I don't know whether Nanda, you want to tell, or Ragha, you would like to talk a little bit more about the particular concerns that you had with the way in which the case was investigated. What I can say is that the reason that the case came to me was because I think you felt completely rushed off by police officers when you were trying to find answers. You couldn't understand, as I understand, why suddenly this young man who had everything to look forward to, there were lots of positive things happening in his life. He had met a woman, I understand, and they were going to get married. He was rebuilding his relationship with his father, and there were lots of positive things. And why would the police just take the obvious, kind of way out and think, well, he must have taken his life, and therefore there's no need for us to investigate. You need those answers, and particularly where the mother and the family are not in this country, and so it is a mystery to them. And I've dealt with other cases like this. I've dealt with a Jamaican woman who died in prison, and just as she was due to be released to go back to see her family, or another young Sudanese man who died in immigration detention, and again, the family. Horrified, particularly when you're not even in this country. How can our child be in the custody or care of the state and have ended his or her life? So those questions arose, but the police just obviously clearly rushed you off, and you went. Fortunately, your MP was the Right Honourable Mr. Lammy, who said no, this is not acceptable, and you referred the case to a colleague of mine who was at that stage tied up, I think, with another case involving a Black Death in his borough, Mark Duggan. So she asked me if I could meet with you, and it was through the pressure of the MP that the police did shift their approach and actually try and do something. The problem is, when you have an investigation into a death, you have what's often known as the golden hour. Immediately afterwards, you need to capture that evidence. And if you miss, if you don't start off correctly, sometimes you lose the strands that you could have got, that could have helped secure the answers that you need. And as in many cases, this is why it's so important that the police do their job properly at every stage along the road. And that's critical, not just for the family, but for sometimes, particularly if there is foul play, you may end up leaving an offender to go on to commit further offences if somebody is not captured. Now, we don't know that there's no very strong evidence that there's foul play in this case, but we don't know that. And you as a family, deserve to know everything about what was surrounding it. You deserve to know if they were missing, if there was somebody who was putting pressure on Abdul Majid before his death, for example. You deserve to know that, even if that person isn't responsible for his death. And so I understand the reasons why your search continues. But a failure to investigate impacts not only on the immediate family, but it can impact on others. And I'll give you a different example. This is not about death. There's another case that I got very involved with over a number of years, which is the case of the serial rapist, John Walwood, who was a taxi driver. Now, when the women that I represented went to the police, to complain that they believed that they'd been drugged and raped by this taxi driver, the police brushed them off and said, well, you know, a black taxi driver, a driver of black taxis, would never risk his licence. And, you know, you can't remember anything, you were out drinking, so we're dismissing. They did an initial investigation, but they didn't follow it through. Consequence of that was that this man went on to attack many more, you know, in excess of 100 others in similar circumstances. So police investigations are important not only for the victim or the family of the victim, but they're important because it's about proper policing and about protecting the rest of society. So, we have to keep demanding that the police do their job properly. So I think I'll leave it there, but if there are particular questions about this case, if I can assist with, and I know I've passed on what information, limited information, unfortunately, we have to David Lammy's office, we're going to try and follow up some questions that the family have. Thank you very much.
So we've heard about how important the golden hour is. And also not to have accidents. But we've heard from Harriet about how she came in, how she got involved in this, and how she tried to help the family. The justice system is supposed to be equal. It's supposed to treat us all right. That's what we've got the Human Rights Act. So both Article 2 and Article 14 are critical for that. So it's really open to you. You've heard from the Lammy MP about what his take is, and you've heard from Harriet. And there's an opportunity to ask any questions, whether it's about the justice system, whether it's about the legal system, and how we get things done. And what I urge us all to do is to keep it positive. The family has actually stepped up by having a trust in the name of Abdul-Majid. They're trying to move on in a positive way. So if we can also support them in that way. Not to say that we won't look at what has gone wrong, because righting the wrongs is also about how we move on. But anybody, any questions, any comments, I'm very pleased if you can say. Yes, please. If you could please identify yourself and then
my name is Reverend Ian. I work with the Egyptian community. I was good when I was in the education, so interested in the subject anyway. Of course, I'm Egyptian from Africa, North Africa. So, as our president now in 2019 is going to be the president of the Union of the African Union, we are so interested about every subject to do in Africa, to see what can we do to make things better. I heard the story of and I want to just ask a question. Was the injustice happening because of the color or because of the race? Like if I go and I say, blah 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 happened to me, something happened to me, they wouldn't know, right? They don't look at that. So would they treat differently, or they take the color as the first thing we act upon? This incident, would it happen just occasionally, or would it happen continuously? Does it happen once and that's it? Maybe mistake, because it could happen with anyone actually, or deliberately happen with a person or with a group of people. I just want to see your vision about.
Wonderful question. Thank you very much. This question really is about difference and how we deal with difference. And I want to be really, really clear about where I'm coming from politically when we talk about this. It is to say that we are citizens sitting here in a country that we have made home, and as a British politician and MP, I'm really proud of this country. I really love my home. You cannot be a member of Parliament if you're not proud of your country, if it's not a sort of recognised that representing it is an immense thing, it's a wonderful thing. There are things about British society, our humour, our love of sports, and actually the way in which a city like London, there's an embrace of multiculturalism that I just think is second to none in the world. So it is always to say that my critique starts from a very, very positive place. But there is a paradox. And the paradox is that we're sitting in a very old colonial country. We're sitting in a country with a huge history. And as a Labour politician, I want to hold and be very clear about a history that has at its core two fundamental things. One is a colonial power that occupied much of the world, carved up much of the world. Those straight lines in Africa and India, the Indian subcontinent, were an invention of this country, in part. And my ancestors were slaves. They were brought from the continent of Africa. I know because I've taken a DNA test for my people, on my mother's side certainly, from Sierra Leone and Niger, and they were brought over to the Caribbean. So they were, I am the descendant of enslaved people. And whilst Britain doesn't like to talk about slavery and its colonisation, it prefers to talk about the abolition Wilberforce, but not actually the what is taken. I'm afraid I have to be honest and clear about that. So that's one thing. The second thing that we know that has been a real sore in Britain is class. Is groups of people who were poorer or working class, who maybe worked down the mine or worked in the mill, or going back to a time of feudal rewards, manners, the second class. And still in this country, class is very real. So when you ask me that question, what we can't ignore in 2018 is that these histories determine sometimes people's responses, and certainly determine institutional responses. So when you come to the police, what class you are, whatever the colour of history, if you speak with a different voice, there's a pecking order sometimes in people. They didn't even realise that in their heads there's a pecking order. When you come with a veil, when you come as a Muslim, there is a pecking order. So I hope that comes to your question, because it's very real. And it's very real at this time, because we have, in the Anglo-American world, we have people with power, like Donald Trump, who would describe the countries from which our heritage is from as shitholes, who would ban Muslim people from even entering the United States. We have in this country systemic issues like Windrush. I'm going to do a debate later on today on immigration and the way that we treat people that most of the country don't even understand. Their contact with the immigration is when they apply for their passport. And there's a hue and a cry if you can't get a passport in more than 2 months. That's too long. That's the majority of the country's contact with immigration. But for those of us who have a more intimate contact with immigration, we understand, different set of rules. Yes? So, in a sense, we love our country, and there are huge, and we could be sitting in France, and many of us would think it might be worse.
Would you think all these situations happen individually, because in the person who deals with the case?
Absolutely. So what we want are institutions that treat people fairly and not subjective judgments that are down to an individual, where prejudice can come into play and have a deep impact on the result.
Well, thank you for that. I'd sort of like a perspective from Harriet, and I'll sort of, the same question but slightly differently. Do you think that because it was women and veiled women at that, women with the hijab, wanting to know about what had happened to their son, the police response was inadequate?
I think there's a high probability that that was the case, and very sadly. And again, I think we see this. I mean, Dave talks about the different experiences. I gave the example of the War Boys case just to also say that the police have, those cultural attitudes around, the sorts of women that might go out and get drunk at night, and then there are judgments made about that. And I mean, the other area which is worth highlighting is disability and mental health. And we know that Abdul Latif had a mental health history, and judgments may have been made about that as well. And I think the point is, as I said earlier, that we have to have a police force that investigates without that lens of prejudice, whatever it may be. Now, police officers come from society. The majority are of a particular are white and British born, and obviously they come with attitudes. But a proper guidance training of police should, and a diverse recruitment of police should ensure that the police approach their job without making those judgments. And that's not just because it's terrible to be treated differently because of your race or your class or your sex, but also because it's bad policing. Because by prejudging the people that come to you, you will fail to see the truth, because you're coming with a lens that distorts reality, and you'll fail to pick things up that should be picked up. And so it's for all reasons that we have to strive for a culture of policing that makes it absolutely forbidden to have racism, sexism, disability discrimination, and that those who carry those attitudes should be rooted out if they can't be re-educated.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Yes, Dr. Hayward.
Thank you very much. My name is Haydar Anas. I'm the Executive Director of Youth Mental Support Class. It's a mentoring program which helps young people to aspire as a young people as well, and also to support them moving into a higher level in their education, employment, volunteering, whatever they want to do. We help them to do that. From there of how and I was speaking a little bit about our families, the loss of fathers. We just talked about, just before the session started, we did that, and we spoke about how much heartbreaking is the loss of family. It could be even more heartbreaking heartbreaking to see young people, aspiring young people like Abdul Majid is lost like that in there. So, but as for the Right Honorable David Ben said, something good can come out of that. Those people who have died have inspired us all the time. Anyone, at individual level or at a group level, they left their legacy, which brings us together for a good cause. So I would like to pay tribute to Nagla, whom I met through my agency. Nagla, when she came, she needed to support herself. She was a mentee, then became a mentor, and then is a trustee now. Now to see her just doing such a huge, wonderful things like that, bring us together is something good for us, as the MP is saying. So my suggestion, it's not a question but a suggestion. We are few here, but there are lots of victims who don't even have the chance to air out their grievances to the public like that. They just suffer in pain at home and lost their loved ones. There are also others who have started trustees, but where are they? There should be some sort of an association to bring them together and to air out their voices together. So there should be a sort of association of those families of victims in the land, who could be so many of them, and become a powerful voice. Is there no a way MP or others could help to bring such people together, such families? That's my suggestion and the Christmas.
Thank you very much. I think our sister Harriet will give an answer.
There is actually an organisation called Friends and Families, which is convened through. There's a wonderful organisation called Inquest, which supports families of people who died in custody and unexplained circumstances, and through that, families of loved ones who died in such circumstances meet together in this organisation called Friends and Families, and every year I think they have a Remembrance March. I think it's in November. I can see if I can find it on my phone if you're interested. But that is a way, I think, that many people have found a way of expressing their joint experiences. I mean, one of the other areas, again, in terms of the mental health, I mean, there are many deaths, and far too many deaths in Nepal as a result of mental illness. And as we see a complete kind of collapse of the services for those with mental ill health, we see more deaths, sadly. And all of those issues are ones that Inquest will focus on, and Friends and Families is a way in which the families can come together around those issues.
Well, I would want to also recognise the organisation Inquest, who does a lot of work, and I've worked with over many years. Can I just say, I have got to go shortly because I have a meeting with the Immigration Minister at 12 o'clock, and I know this audience wants me to keep that meeting with the Immigration Minister. But take those two questions.
Thank you very much.
Statement.
Okay, but a quick one. And then you have somebody else.
Yeah, my name is Aja. I'm from Northampton, and we have a registered charity to promote and support people of African descent, whereby whether it's in education, history, immigration, public health and services. So at the moment, we're working together with Ms. Fernanda to set up that all other organizations, because they can also come under as an umbrella into our organization, and then we can form a unity and then support and work together as a unity and a heart onto all the inquests that we need and also the problem that we're facing. At the moment, Saturday at the Foundation is also visiting people in detention centers and prison and talking to them about mental health and I was one of the delegates who went to the UN in 2015 to submit a report for the mental health for the CERD, and then the CERD came to the UK and we questioned the UK government on the mental health issue and people facing problem in detention here in the UK. And after that, that is when the UK government took it on to work on the immigration status. So we will get back to you, or you can get in touch with Sister Nana and she will give you more information.
Can I just say, this time last year October, I was invited with a number of other ethnic minority politicians across Europe to the Black Caucus in the United States with the senators and congressmen and women who are of African descent and Latino descent in the United States. And there I met some colleagues. It's funny, you've got to go all the way across the Atlantic. But I met colleagues from Sweden, Italy and Denmark. And they introduced me, because you're always learning, they introduced me to a term that is being used now in Europe. I'm not hearing it in the UK so much, but it's being used in Europe, and it is Afrophobia. 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 I'm sure they said Afrophobia. Wait a Afrophobia.
Progressive say Afri.
Okay, progressive say Afri. Okay, qualified. And you know, this is important because I instantly understood what they were talking about. And it's a bit like Islamophobia. It's everyday, easy, and certainly never questioned by the system. Just a few months ago, Alan Sugar responding or tweeting, joking in relation to the World Cup, tweeted a very offensive photo that was meant to be the Senegalese team, of basically some African men who were selling handbags and things on the street corner in Italy or somewhere. Spain. As if this was the Senegalese team. He thought it was fun. And it's the everyday racism and prejudice that a lord of the country can do and thinks it's okay. This is a lord who took the Labour whip. It's a small indication of that subject. But it just occurs to me, I'm so glad you went to the UN, but there are now growing forces at the EU level, which of course Britain is pulling out of, that are supportive, that are coming together across the European Union, have some small funds. So we better get a quick application in before we leave.
Very well. You know, I'd like you all to join me in thanking David for all the work he does, for what we hear about and what we don't hear about, but especially when he mentioned the Windrush generation. I mean, we all need to remember it's the Commonwealth and Windrush generation. I mean, my mum came here in 1947 to study nursing, but she went home. My dad came in 48, Durham. But it's about that he talked about, just giving you a glimpse of what he talked about, for those who've just come in. He talked about the impact of the empire and how connected we all are because this country controlled half the world. This country drew, with others, drew lines through the continent of Africa. That Africa is the cradle of our civilization. That we all join together, we're family because of that continent. And that together we can do a lot. He's doing his bit. It's our duty to support him. And also to ask him to support us. He has actually given us support for the Abdul-Rashid Educational Trust. He's been on the journey with the family. He supported them, put them in touch with Harriet's firm, and Harriet has been on the journey with them. And so we really thank you for all that. He has to go because he's going to continue the work he's doing. But by God's grace, he'll have the strength to continue. I'll end by reminding everybody who is not aware of it that we're in the UN decade for people of African descent. Because the UN, the member states, all 195 of them, or however they are, have recognized that Africans are marginalized and discriminated against more than any other community everywhere in the world. And therefore, with MPs like David there, we probably might get the UK government to move a bit, because the UK government has no intention of marking a decade, or they have no specific plans. But we know that the problem we've had with police investigation from the discussion here stems from Afrophobia. And we're quite clear it's Afrophobia, not Afrophobia, because Afrophobia refers you to a hairstyle. It's nothing about Afros. We're talking about the African continent, Afrophobia. We are all connected to the African continent. It's also about anti-Semitism. It's also about Islamophobia. We can't forget all those aspects of racism and the other things that Harry talked about, whether it's sexism, transphobia, whatever. But we need to continue doing positive things like this trust. So David, thank you for your time.
Let me just say finally, when they say, why are you here? Because we know we get a lot of that. Never forget Malcolm X, who said famously, we didn't land on Plymouth Rock landed on us. With this Commonwealth business. We are here because you were there. Right? And the second person I quote is the wonderful academic who's not with us anymore, Stuart Hall. Stuart Hall was of Jamaican background, but obviously a descendant of slaves. And he said very beautifully, I am the sugar in the British cup of tea. Be in touch, yes? I'll get to that.
Our MPs off to do some work. We're lucky enough to have Harriet with us, and we will continue the discussion, especially if you want to know more about the legal background of things, how to fight cases, how to get support, how as people we can understand the system, which is quite alien to all of us. Because even if you speak the language, there is a whole culture around legal representation and but I know you have to go as well. So, colleagues, whilst you think about it, if you've got questions, if you want to know how to access things, it's important that we do that together. Okay, a photo call. Anybody wants to be in a picture at the end? Very quickly. Meeting, because Sister Harriet will also have to go at 12. So we've got an opportunity now to have an informal discussion. Before our MP left, Dr. Haley got a solicitor here. She has experience of this loss and also of working with the police. Before David left, he told us in his presentation about the issue of both race and class and how there's this institutional prejudice. So maybe there is a way of getting around it. You've got this experience here, so I urge you to ask questions and use this opportunity to find out what you can do Because sometimes it's the way we present ourselves that influences the response we get. So I lay the floor is open for any questions, comments. Yeah, thank you.
I have a couple of questions. The first one, with all that happened, does really the government think the impact on people, how bad it's going to have impact on people, or they just ignore this matter? Because we can see lots of problems with mental health and suicide and killing. So they didn't catch anyone's eyes to try to change.
So
The mental health, all these problems, which most of immigrants or Africans, they go through.
I think one of the terrible things about, particularly around the issue of people who are here, maybe as asylum seekers or recent immigrants, is that they may not have a strong community, they may not be properly kind of established or connected yet, and if they end up in immigration detention, many thousands of miles away from their family and their community, and deaths occurring in those circumstances are particularly difficult because there are not necessarily people there to speak for. And I've certainly seen some very tragic and awful situations where there's no one there, there's no family immediately around or no community to push for and ask questions. Those are sometimes the cases that really that there is no light shot. And obviously it's very important that shouldn't happen again, regardless of where they are. I mean, the reality is that the cases that do get profiled are those that where there are people who are able to shout out or reach out to the media in some way. This is something I've sought to do sometimes when I've represented a family where I think the media may take an interest. I mentioned the case of the young Sudanese from Darfur. He came over as an unaccompanied asylum seeker. He was about 15, fleeing from the conflict there, and sent by his family to maybe find a better life. And he ended up in very troubled circumstances and in prison for setting fire to his room because he was in a state of distress. And then found himself in an immigration detention without contact with the outside world. And sadly, he took his own life. And we managed through connections with an organisation that was campaigning around the issue, who referred the case to me, and then through some publicity to get some media interest in that case, so that we could sort of highlight it and make sure that the questions were asked. So it's certainly something that one wants to do, and where you have families who are able to articulate and speak for someone who's died, and can find a way in which wider public can take an interest. That is obviously a way of shining a light. And every time you shine a light, you put some pressure on the agencies to do a better job in the future. One knows.
Thank you.
Can I answer some of the questions?
Of course, what you said.
Yeah. What I agree with what Harriet said. I agree with what she said. Because when you go to the detention, like for example, some of the immigration issues, is that when the people are taken into the detention, they don't have no income, they don't have no families or any friends to support them, and then they are being pressured in a detention. So the mental state of them is becoming very difficult. And then they have all these detention programs that they have to deal with. They don't have any income to pay a solicitor who will fight their case. So sometimes they are left out and they don't know what else to do. And then they overtaking them with their mental status. What you said about pressure on the government, as we went to the UN through the Global African Congress and the Black Foundation, when we went to the UN and we questioned the UK government on how the people are facing, what they are facing in the detention centers and also mental health. The UN government didn't want to answer that question, but we provide, as organizations, a lot of organizations provide an evidence to show that this is a case. And that is when the UN questioned the United government on it, and then asked the United government to do something about it. So we need all these organizations to raise their voice and to talk about it, what is affecting them within their own community. Thank you.
So just my second question. Do you think class is the more effective in this situation? Like, if Mr. Rukmani, he went to sort any problems out, it would be sorted in a minute, I'm sure of that. But if anyone else went, which say businessmen are not MP, will it be with the same degree? And then plus under that, would it be in the same degree? So do you think the class is the main key of what we are talking about?
So the question was, do you think class is the most determinant factor in the UK when you're trying to get justice?
I think different issues play out. I don't think necessarily class is. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it is ethnicity. Sometimes it is immigration status. Sometimes it is issues around mental health or learning disability. Sometimes it is religion. Sometimes it is sex. You know, women. I mean, there are different prejudices, and it depends on what circumstances and how it plays out. But I mean, certainly class is an issue, but that plays out as well. And you know, even though you see people, you know, from a well-off background, but they come from another country or a woman, and they can be subject to prejudice as well. So you know, it's not one thing. It's all these things intersect, as we said.
Okay, so really what we're saying is that intersection plays a role, but one of the important things is that all of us must realize how interconnected we are, and we need to support each other in making that difference. So one of the things that I need to tell you about, and the details we sent to Nairobi, is that the UN is sending a special rapporteur to the UK. He's arriving in November, and it's to look at the impact of poverty on citizens within this member state. Because of course the UN has been receiving a lot of reports. For example, Sister Haja talked about CERD, and that stands for the Committee for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. And a lot of groups have been there. You know, one of the things that we must all realize is that we live in an unfair world, but a lot of people of goodwill have been trying to put things in place so that we can get justice. So it is up to us to interact with these institutions. So when we've got a solicitor like Harriet who's willing to step out and help, it is up to us to also, you know, give the hand of friendship. Because these things can be difficult, but it's by connecting with each other that we can make that difference. So just remember that the UN is coming, and we can let them know if in your casework you know of things happening. You can actually, you don't even need to actually meet the person, you can actually write 1A4, half an A4 about incidents or cases, and that will feed into the information that goes forward. So you're not alone, basically, is what I want to say. Sister Serena.
No, I want to ask her,
Yeah, please.
if she takes
and she works as volunteer or she takes cases as well, paid cases.
Well, take cases.
You take cases.
Well, I do take cases, but at the moment I'm very, very over capacity. But it depends what sort of case as well. Are you talking about another death, or are you talking an immigration case, or yeah? I mean, there are immigration lawyers in our office, and I know that there is a huge pressure. There are not enough good immigration lawyers around, and I have seen probably more bad practice by lawyers in immigration law than in any other area. Unfortunately, there are a lot of cowboys out there as well, but I mean, you can certainly try my firm, and we would hope to pass on a list if there's somewhere else that can help. But unfortunately, I can't take on any cases at the moment.
Well, thank you. That also shows you what a good lawyer she is, because she's over capacity. And often that's our problem. Trying to access good legal representation is often a problem. But I think by working together and by working with voluntary organizations that exist and watching out for the cowboys, because unfortunately there are too many of them around. But again, it is how we connect each other.
I think you mentioned paying for advice, and one thing I would say is don't necessarily assume you're going to get better advice because you pay for it.
I was asked to find is a friend, she asked me to find a lawyer, good immigrant lawyer, so that's why I asked.
No, I totally understand it, and I mean, it may be that she's not eligible for legal aid, and she has to find a way to pay for it. But I have had this experience as well. People think that you can only get good advice if you pay for it, and that doesn't necessarily follow. So it's just a word of warning that the ones that charge money aren't necessarily the best. And there is a legal aid. I mean, it's very, very limited now, unfortunately. It's been cut back hugely. But there is still, in relation to certain types of immigration, asylum, for example, there is still some legal aid. So, you should be entitled to that if it's available. That's just to say that.
Any other questions or comments? But thinking that often, money is an issue for everybody. For money is the fuel we need to live. However, if you try to do it on your own, you're usually handicapped. But the collective is powerful. So maybe you could bring that in. I know it's slightly off topic, but it is, yes please. But it sort of tells us about how by linking up we can support people. Because as Curtis actually told us, it's dangerous to assume that it's the amount you pay that gives you good advice. Because one of the things that I found, when I was a counselor, I started some casework. It's taken 11 years for the person's immigration to be sorted. Imagine 11 years of being in limbo. But thank God it's been sorted. But it's that problem, and in between, while you're doing that, when you can't work, you need community around yourself. And one of the things that we heard from the discussion is that people in detention, they're often isolated. So we need to think as communities how we support people so that they're not on their own. So I'll introduce Dr.